On today's five-star flex, I've got a very, very special treat. My man, Andy Staples, one of the most recognizable faces in college football, joins me today. Andy, what's going on?
What's up, Dukes?
Not much. All right, so as I already introduced you, everybody knows you. You have a really rich history when it comes to college football. Talk to me about the rivalry that is Nebraska Colorado.
Well, this is one of those great old rivalries, the Big Eight rivalry. And people forget about this. Like, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Nebraska, Colorado, and especially like Nebraska, Colorado in the 90s when you had Tommy Frazier and then Cordell Stewart was at Colorado and Rashawn Salam was playing for Colorado. These were the games in that league because Oklahoma was actually a little down at the time. And so for a lot of us, like you and me, who are in our 40s, like those were huge games when we were teenager, middle school, teenage, high school. And because Nebraska and Colorado have fallen off nationally, have not been competing for national championships, you forget that this is a real rivalry. Now, obviously, conference realignment has made that difficult too, because you had Nebraska going to the Big Ten and Colorado leaving the Big 12 for the Pac-12 at the same time. So they haven't seen each other as much, but it's been fun and kind of weird when they have seen each other since. Like, I remember the 1 year Mel Tucker was at Colorado. They played Nebraska, and it was one of those where you thought Nebraska would just roll in and win, and then Mel beats Colorado, or Mel beats Nebraska. I think actually that kind of helped Mel get the Michigan State job, which further, pushed Colorado into this cycle of what do we do now? So it's crazy. This was once a game that everybody watching. The last time I remember it being really huge was 2001. It was Black Friday, and Nebraska was in the mix to play for the national title, but everybody knew Miami was going to play for the national title. It was a question of who was going to play Miami, and like Tennessee had beaten Florida, or actually Tennessee hadn't played Florida yet. Tennessee and Florida were going to play the following week because that game had been moved because of 9/11. But Nebraska and Colorado are playing, and Nebraska is supposed to blow them out. Colorado runs for like 1,000,000 yards and just crushes Nebraska. And it was like, oh, Nebraska's out of the national title game. They somehow wound up getting into the national title game because Tennessee lost to LSU in the SEC championship game. But that was probably the last, before Dion and all that stuff last year, probably the last time we were really thinking about Colorado from a national perspective. I know Mike McIntyre did win the Pac-12 South the 1 year, but it was a case where we still just didn't think of them as coming back, or it felt more fluky than anything else. And so now you've got Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter going in against Dylan Raiola and an incredibly good defense that has a very good defensive line that is going to challenge that Colorado offensive line. You've got Ty Robinson, the Vanilla Gorilla. You got Nash Hutmacher, the Polar Bear. Like, this is one of those games that's kind of made for nicknames, made for just everybody watching and commenting. And it's crazy because it's two teams that didn't make a bowl game last year, but we're all going to be watching that game.
So speaking of games that we're all watching, we all watched the opener with Colorado, and a lot of us watched the Nebraska game. Everybody wanted to see how Dylan Raiola was going to perform. What were your takeaways, first of all, from those two games? Well, actually, let's go here first.
Yeah.
You're Deion Sanders right now. How do you use Colorado's game one as a recruiting pitch to a five-star?
We played an FCS team. I don't think the ratings have come out yet. I think they come out on Tuesday.
Right.
But you use that. We played an FCS team, and this many people watched the game.
Right. I like that.
And you compare it to the other big programs that played FCS teams, and it's not even really close. Now, they played a very different FCS team than most of them played. Like Colorado and Oklahoma State scheduled big dog FCS teams. So like North Dakota State, as you saw, was really good. But you don't see that. Even when it's a good FCS team, you don't see that sort of attention paid to a program. And I think that's how you use it. And you also can use it of, hey, we still need you. Like, the offensive line was I'd say slightly better than last year, but didn't look like it was a whole lot better. So you've got Jordan Seaton, who's a true freshman starting at left tackle. Their spots, because they brought in guys from the transfer portal. Some of those guys are older. They're going to be gone. So there's spots. And then, I thought the defense, aside from a couple of the guys on the line, they can upgrade for sure. And aside from Shiloh, who will be going to the NFL, and Travis Hunter. But then also, if I'm Dion, I find as many dynamic playmakers as I can and show them what I do with Travis Hunter and say, how many other schools would be letting Travis do this?
Right.
Would give him this showcase.
Right.
Because I don't think there were many. Like, if Travis Hunter had gone along with the original plan and gone to Florida State, like, would he have just played one position for 3 years?
Right.
Or would they have, obviously they would have probably had him returning kicks and doing something like that, but would they have really legitimately considered playing him significant amounts of the game both ways?
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, I think there's no way. And you're seeing some of the NFL guys come out and say, hey, there's no way he can do this on the next level. But I just think that, like you said,
I'm convinced, like, if Belichick gets a job, he's drafted, and it's a bad team, he's drafting Travis Hunter. Because you saw what he did with Troy Brown. Like,
right.
He doesn't. Right. He'll pick a primary position. It won't be like this. It won't be all game. But he'll want a guy that if he could get some reps out of him at the other position. Now, let me ask you this, because I have my answer. I want to know your answer. Where are you playing him in the NFL? You're the NFL coach whose team winds up drafting Travis Hunter. Which side of the ball are you playing him on?
I gotta go wide receiver. I just think he's too good with the ball in his hands. As a DB, I think I just think that he's good as a DB, but there's so much that you have to do scheme wise that I feel like I think I would rather him steal reps at DB and focus on wide receiver than vice versa. That's what I would like.
I'm with you too, because some of those catches, the second touchdown catch and the third touchdown catch the other night, like the body control, there are not a lot of guys in the NFL who can do that, who can make those catches. So, like, he's special as a receiver. He's good as a corner. Now, the thing about Travis that I find interesting, like, I don't care what Colorado's record is. If he continues to play like this, where he is playing most of the snaps on both sides of the ball and he's effective, you have to consider him for the Heisman Trophy heavily. Absolutely. You have to. We haven't seen this. Like, we have seen guys go both ways, like Charles Woodson, Champ Bailey, but they did it in limited roles on one side of the ball. This is a full-time starter on both sides of the ball. We have not seen this since before you and I were born. Like, our parents might remember this from when they were kids, but they basically, by the time they were teenagers, nobody was doing this anymore.
Right. This for what I saw of Travis Hunter the other night, like, and when I consider him, and the reason I say offense, just to get back to that, is you always have to account for him on offense. Literally, you have to know where he is at all times. On defense, he can blend in a little bit. Now, you don't want to throw out him in a man situation, but you don't have to shift your whole offense and change what you do in order to find Travis Hunter. But defensively, you've got to do that. And I think for a guy that can shift your game plan in game, that's what the most valuable player or the Heisman looks like to me. And right now, he's able to do that on both sides of the ball. Yeah. So, I think he has to be the front runner at this point.
And it brings up something else, and it's more of a recruiting topic, but we have these guys that, and look, if you're an elite receiver in high school, unless you're playing at St. Thomas Aquinas or IMG Academy or somewhere like that, you are playing both sides of the ball. You are playing. Now, a lot of times high schools will put that guy at free safety just and let him roam and do everything he can do. But you are playing both sides of the ball. You're capable of probably being the best corner on your team, along with being an elite receiver. How many guys are there that maybe would like to play both ways in college, would like the opportunity to have this role, and would make it part of their recruiting? Because a lot of times you have the guys that are like, okay, I want to run track for your school. I want to play baseball for your school too. I want to try to make the basketball team at your school. And coaches will negotiate that. How many other coaches besides Dion do you think? Because I think, like, if I were another coach, I'd be watching this and I'd say, oh, okay, I'm going to go after this elite guy who probably would only go to Georgia or Alabama or Ohio State. And I'm going to offer him the chance to play both ways. That's going to be my pitch. That's going to be how I differentiate my pitch to him. And then follow through with it if he comes to you.
Yeah, I think that recruiting wise, there are only a few guys like that could actually.
It's not many. Yeah, it's not many who'd be capable of it. But there are some, like, I covered Percy Harvin at Florida.
Right.
You could have put Percy at corner. Like DeAnthony Thomas, when he was at Oregon, could have played corner at the same time. Yeah.
I think there are a couple of guys who you think who could play both ways. But for one, right now, Caleb Downs. Caleb Downs is a guy who I really think could play both ways for an extended period in college football. And but once again, he's one of those top 2, top 3 type guys. So, but if I'm Deion, absolutely, you got to sell that. Like, why wouldn't you? And who better to teach you than the guy who was almost
who did it?
Right.
He did it in the NFL.
In the NFL, right? So, all right. Now, conversely, you're Matt Rule.
Yep.
Game 1, you've got the number 1 quarterback in the country who comes in and starts as a true freshman. What are you selling to the recruits attending the Nebraska game and the Nebraska Colorado game?
We got this guy for at least 2 more years. I don't know because if he's really good, that's all you got him for. But come join the party. It's time to join the party because it's going to be big things in Nebraska. This is a program that hasn't been to a bowl game since 2016. Going to break that bowl drought this year. Going to get better and better. And this guy's only going to get better. Like this guy is going to get better as a quarterback, better as a leader. And I'll tell you, I worried about the Dylan Raiola thing. 2 flips, 4 high schools. And I find myself like spinning it in my head watching Matt Rule talk about Dylan Raiola because there's a play in the game where Dylan Raiola actually, he comes to the line of scrimmage, looks at UTEP's defense, checks into another play. UTEP's defense moves. He checks into another play. They move after that, and he checks into a third play, and it winds up being a long Nebraska run. And so he picked correctly every time. And I'm like, well, maybe going to 4 high schools, being in 4 offenses made him a little more savvy for stuff like it. Because you cover recruiting. Like that's maybe the biggest red flag there can be. Right. And so far that there hasn't been any issue on that front. And I look at the way he throws the ball, because I feel like all these players are trying to be Patrick Mahomes. Like I saw Cam Ward live yesterday, and he's always had a little bit of a funky motion, but it almost feels like he's trying to do the Patrick Mahomes arm slot thing. Dylan Raiola is moving arm slots around very instinctively. It's not I'm trying to copy Patrick Mahomes. It is I am moving to my right. There's a linebacker right here, and I have to get it under his arm into the breadbasket of my receiver. And so I'm going to go 3/4 with this one. But on this other play, I have this guy coming straight at me. There's a guy streaking down the right sideline. I'm going straight over the top, and I'm going to hit him. And I don't know. There's a lot of quarterbacks in college that can do that.
Right. I mean, and to even further your point, Mahomes literally text him like, "Hey, cuzzo, like, hey, little cuz, I see you, right?" Like, who else gets that type of tweet from the best quarterback in the world but Dylan Raiola?
Many.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting. So, okay, going forward, what does CU have to do to win?
They have got to control, keep Raiola in the pocket. One, they really struggled with Cam Miller at North Dakota State on that front. And now here's the thing, because this is where you go, oh, Raiola is a 5-star, and that's an FCS quarterback. Let's look at it from a different perspective. Raiola is a guy starting his second college game. Cam Miller is a veteran quarterback who's played in a lot of big games. So he was going to make the right choice every time. And his thing was, if I drop back, my protection breaks down even a little, and they're in man, and I see all those backs turned, I'm gone. And it worked for him. It nearly won them the game. And so that's what Colorado has to make sure that Dylan Raiola does not escape the pocket and have a free 10 yards every time they're in man coverage, because that's a problem. Now, what they did well, I thought, against North Dakota State is when North Dakota State wanted to run the ball with designed runs to backs, they set edges really well. They changed the line of scrimmage. They reset the line of scrimmage up front. They got more of a push than we ever saw Colorado get last year. So I think that will help them. But they got to cover better. They did not cover very well in that game, and they're going to be playing against more talented receivers in this one. And then the offensive line just has to protect, because Shedeur got hit a few times in that game, but North Dakota State did not have the guys that Nebraska has. And specifically the guys you need to worry about for Nebraska are coming up the middle. Their edge guys are okay. Their interior guys are awesome. And so that can wreck you if you can't handle those guys in the middle.
All right, conversely, what does Nebraska have to do to win?
Control Shedeur, control Travis Hunter. Don't get in situations where you're trying to cover Travis Hunter one-on-one, because you're not going to win those. Don't lose. Don't lose Jimmy Horn. That's the other thing North Dakota State kept doing. They had to play zone because they didn't have the athletes to play those guys in man, and so they occasionally there'd be mental lapses and they'd lose Jimmy Horn. I don't think Shedeur is going to get that many easy throws this time. So, but if they can cover man every once in a while, cover those guys man to man, but make sure there's a safety kind of watching and helping with Travis Hunter, because he's the one who really scares you. Like, LeJontay Wester's good, Horn's good, but Hunter is the guy who destroys you.
All right, Andy, give it to me. Prediction time. How do you see this game going, and give me a score?
I think it's going to be a little bit lower scoring game, but with these two quarterbacks, they're going to hit some throws. So I'm going to say Nebraska 24, Colorado 21.
So, all right. So for my people in Vegas, Andy saying take the under, and
I did.
And Nebraska will not cover.
That's right. That's right. And I think if Raiola can control the turnovers, they're going to win. But if you have a couple early turnovers, I mean, you saw that's how that game turned last year. Right. Jeff Sims just started handing them the ball right before halftime, and it was over. So that's either one of these teams. If you turn it over on them now, with these quarterbacks they have, they'll punish you.
Yeah, absolutely. In Nebraska, that's something they're going to have to do. That was a recurring. They had 31 turnovers, which is a ton. When you average it out, that's almost 3 turnovers a game. You can't win like that. And I think exactly. When I think the new running back Dante Dowdell, who I think is an amazing running back, he put the ball on the carpet and they pulled him instantly. Now, he was by far the best running back in that game to me. But the ball security is something I don't think Matt Rule is going to play with at all. So we'll see how it turns out. For my pick, I'm taking Colorado in a shootout, something like 49-45. I think it's going to be a wild game. So we'll see how it turns out. Now, Andy, you were at the UF Miami game. Recruits everywhere. Tell me about the atmosphere pregame.
Pregame atmosphere was everything you've been told about the Swamp. It was perfect. The weather was, it wasn't great. It was 92 degrees and the humidity was about 1,000,000%. But that's what you want in an early season game with the Swamp. And, it's interesting because all these recruits, a lot of them are from Florida. Right. So they're also being recruited by Miami. Right. And, the crowd was going nuts. It was loud. It was very cool. It was everything you want in a 90,000 seat stadium. So those guys, they want to see the atmosphere. They got the taste of it. Now, it got real quiet real fast. By the middle of the second quarter, that crowd was out of the game. Miami was physically dominating Florida. Both lines of scrimmage, Miami was much better. And I would argue that Miami was probably better at every single position group than Florida, which if you're Billy Napier, you could, I guess, say, hey, we need you now. But at this point, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything he can say, because if they play a couple more games like that, he's not going to be there next year.
Let's talk about Miami. Let's talk about the new guys, Damian Martinez and Cam Ward. Are they as good as billed, in your opinion?
So Damian Martinez is definitely as good as billed. Cam Ward, I was wondering how good he'd be, because I watched him at Washington State. I knew about him at Incarnate Word, and I was wondering where he'd kind of land. And when he threw that interception early, I was like, that's the Washington State Cam Ward, because he would have these situations where, and Florida had clearly scouted him. Partially, they don't have much of a pass rush, and they knew it. Right. But they would just rush 4, because if you watched Cam Ward at Washington State, if you cover well enough, he gets a little antsy if he has some time.
Okay.
And he'll get frustrated and he'll just kind of throw it up. And he did that once, and Shamar James intercepted it. But I thought he did a great job settling down after that and then realizing, okay, there are going to be some plays where everybody's covered. So I just got to make something happen, either make something happen with my legs or throw it away and live to fight another day. And I think he did that. And then it started to break open because that offensive line was getting a good push up front. They were doing well in the run game with Damian Martinez and with Mark Fletcher Jr., who they had. Another guy that was interesting, I thought Sam Brown, the Houston transfer receiver, he didn't do a lot as a receiver, but he had an unbelievable block that sprung Fletcher for I believe it was their second touchdown. And that was the one where it was like, this could go real bad, real fast. And then they had the mental lapse where Montrell Johnson runs for the long touchdown for Florida. And then immediately Cam Ward comes back and boom, boom, boom down the field. And it was Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo had a kind of like mind meld connection. And that's for guys who didn't play together last year. That was pretty amazing.
How good is Xavier Restrepo? Like we don't talk about him a lot in like the upper echelon of receivers, but every year he just comes up and puts together heck of a seasons. How do you rank him as far as in that upper echelon of receivers?
So he's not going to wow you physically like Tetroy McMillan at Arizona or like Jeremiah Smith, who we saw for the first time at Ohio State, or Cam Coleman at Auburn. But he is going to get open. Mm-hmm. He is going to be very fast, and he's going to catch the ball. And all those things put together, you're going to gain yards. You're going to score touchdowns with this guy. So, like T-Mac at Arizona is a freak. He averaged 30 yards a catch on Saturday night. Like, there are not many human beings like that. There's not guys like Luther Burden at Missouri. Like, they have some just God-given physical gifts that don't exist elsewhere in nature. Xavier Restrepo has just an incredible combination of traits that make him the perfect go-to receiver, though. The one that the quarterback just loves. And he's going to have a big year this year.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I saw him live last year, and what I noticed was his feet. I don't think people talk about how good his feet are. As far as like getting in and out of his breaks, the way even on double moves, he explodes every time on the second move. Like,
well, you know who was great at getting in and out of breaks and was just had otherworldly change of direction speed. And it's funny because everybody thought he was just like this try hard, is Hunter Renfrow. Like Hunter Renfrow had, like, if you go back and look at his combine, his 40 time's not great. His cone drills are elite. And people can't. And the thing about it, you think about how often are you running a go route versus something that requires you to put your foot in the ground and change directions? Well, you're more often changing directions. And that's, if you do that faster than other humans do it, you're gaining seconds on them or fractions of a second on them that they can't catch up to you. And now you're open. And that's what Renfrow did. That's what Restrepo does. Like, his routes are perfect also. And that was another thing that Renfrow would do. Like, you could tell they practice them so much that, they know exactly whatever their offense says. Like, if their offense says, you push 7 and then you cut here, like he pushes exactly 7 and he cuts here, and he's exactly where he needs to be when the quarterback throws the ball.
Everything is textbook until he gets the ball in his hands. And then
he makes some
he's way shiftier.
And that's where the Renfrow comparisons change, because he's got that straight line speed and the ability to burst and get away from people. And you saw that there was a throw over the middle late in the game where you saw that from him. And I was really impressed. I was impressed with all of Miami's offensive line as well. And we kind of knew, like, Francis Mauigoa is a huge recruit, started as a true freshman. Jalen Rivers is his 5th year in the program, the left tackle. They went and got another, like, they had a transfer center last year from UCF. They lost, he went to the NFL. They got the center from Indiana. He did a great job. And I mean, Florida could not do anything in terms of pass rush. Nothing. And then Miami just wore them down with that push as the game went on in the run game. It was very impressive.
All right. Now, we've done a lot of wide receiver talk, but now we need to shift it to the rookies. the new guys.
Yeah.
This may be the best wide receiver class that we've ever seen. Now, you had 3 guys last year who were ranked really highly in the on-3 rankings. You got Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. You got Ryan Hollywood Williams at Bama, and you got Cam Coleman at Auburn. Talk to me about how good these guys are, how good they can be, and how you expect their seasons to go.
I mean, the Ryan Williams stat line is just amazing. 2 catches, 139 yards, and 2 TDs. Now, they were all over Western Kentucky. It was a mismatch, and obviously, all 3 of these teams were playing mismatched opponents. So it's hard to judge completely until we see them against better opponents. But I think what I think is interesting is the reports you got out of practice when those guys got there. And Ryan Williams is a little bit different because he didn't do spring practice. The other 2 did spring practice. So the fact that he's already ready to contribute is big, because I in spring practice, it was Caleb Odom was the guy everybody was talking about.
Right.
But obviously they knew Ryan Williams was coming. This is going to be so much fun to watch these guys. You know, Cam Coleman is the guy Auburn has needed forever and couldn't get. Mm-hmm. And then Jeremiah Smith is just the rich getting richer. Like, think about the idea of Marvin Harrison leaving and this guy coming in who might be better off the bat than Marv was. And I realize that is huge praise, and people are thinking we're just overhyping this guy. No, you talk to the Ohio State DBs, they want to play against him in practice because he's the best guy on the team. Mm-hmm. And then Ryan Day just got to the point where he's like, I'm not even going to praise him because you probably aren't going to believe me until you see it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I saw him last year at Elite 11. They had OT7 and Elite 11 was like the same weekend in LA last year. And seeing him, how big he was, I would have thought he was like a DN linebacker the way he's built. But then when I saw him, and we talk about getting in and out of breaks, I mean, the way he could change levels at that size to straight, like literally, if he had to play the slot, he can play it. There's nothing that he can't do from a receiver position at that size. Let me ask you this. If you were to compare this class to the Julio Jones, AJ Green class, which class would you take, this year or that year?
Well, because you have 3 that you feel like can be superstars. And of course, there's probably going to be somebody else that surprises us. But like Julio and AJ were exactly what they were billed to be as well. I remember I remember listening to Feinbaum the day Julio committed, and some guy called in crying because Julio had committed. But then AJ was from Somerville, South Carolina. John McKissick, the winningest high school coach of all time, and he was mature. And it's like when AJ got to Georgia, it's like he'd been playing there for 10 years. Like he was the AJ Green from the Bengals when he was a freshman at Georgia. And that's the thing with Julio too. He came in and was immediately great in a class that also included Mark Ingram, that included Dante Hightower. I mean, the 2008 Alabama class might be the most important recruiting class in the history of recruiting.
Jeez. You're right. Now we think about it, because all of those guys, all of those defenders that were on that team, right? And
and then you also had like Barrett Jones, who won the Outland Trophy and played 3 different positions at Alabama along the offensive line during his time there. They were just absolutely loaded.
If you had to pick a Heisman winner after week 1, who's your guy?
Travis Hunter.
Got to be, right?
Because we haven't seen it. Now, T-Mac looked amazing. Ashton Jenney from Boise State. Like, Ashton Jenney outgained entire offenses in that Georgia Southern game. That was what? 6 touchdowns.
Come on, man. Like, if all right, let's take Travis Hunter out of it because he's an outlier.
Yeah.
Let's take Travis Hunter out. So the non-Hunter Heisman, who does that go to after week 1?
Cam Ward, I think, would probably be the front runner. And then T-Mac and Ashton Jenney, I think would get a lot of votes.
Andy, this was so much fun. The Andy flex. Andy Staples has the talk to us about Ari, man. Like
that's right. That's right. My tag team partner has returned. Ari Wasserman. We used to do a show together at The Athletic. We are back together now. He has joined On 3. So you can read him at On 3. He's already got a couple columns out. Like, he was dying. His stuff couldn't start until midnight of Saturday night. Okay. And he's just like, he had all these takes that he wanted to squeeze off, like about Clemson and about Miami. And so now he has an outlet for that. And yeah, so he and I are on the show together. We'll be Monday through Thursday, 9:30 in the morning, live on the On3 Sports YouTube channel. 11:30 p.m. Saturday nights, recapping all the games on the On3 Sports YouTube channel. That's available also in podcast form if you don't want to look at us anywhere you get your podcast. And then as stuff happens, like we'll pop on live and we'll talk about it.
All right, Andy. Everybody already knows you, but just drop your socials one more time for those living under a rock. I
am Andy_Staples on X and on Instagram. And if you throw me a follow on Instagram, it's bad. It's I'm thinking about going thirst trap because I just don't know how to get the follower count up. I'm working on the abs.
Oh man. Andy, man, thanks so much, man. See you soon, big dog.
Thanks, Dukes.
All right, man.